It started like any other morning in our quiet suburban neighborhood. Birds chirping, sprinklers spraying, and neighbors jogging by with their dogs. But that peace shattered the moment HOA. Karen decided she was going to enforce the rules, her way. I remember it vividly. The knock on the door wasn't polite. It was aggressive, sharp, almost demanding, like she had a warrant from some higher authority. But this wasn't the police. It was HOA Karen, self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac, wielding her clipboard like a weapon. I opened the door, trying to stay calm. She was mid-lecture, pointing at imaginary violations, threatening fines that didn't even exist. "Your child's toys on the lawn are violating HOA regulations," she barked, as if she had the right to control my property. I barely had time to process her words when the situation escalated. Behind her, a few men in suspicious uniforms, fake badges dangling from their necks, strode forward. They weren't city cops. They weren't sheriff deputies. But they wanted me to think they were. And worse, they had their eyes on my daughter. My heart stopped. My daughter, playing innocently in the yard, suddenly became the center of a nightmare. The fake HOA police moved closer, voices stern, insisting she had to come with them. Panic surged, but my training, years in the Navy SEALs, kicked in. I knew these weren't law enforcement officers. They were bullies pretending to be authority. But the question was, how far would they go? I stepped forward, calm but firm. "She stays right where she is," I said, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline pumping through my veins. The men hesitated, clearly unsure how to react to a SEAL-trained dad ready to defend his family. But HOA Karen didn't falter. She waved her hands, pointing to imaginary regulations, trying to assert control. That's when I realized this wasn't just about toys or fines. It was about power. Karen craved it, and she thought she could intimidate anyone, anywhere, even a Navy SEAL. I knew then this would escalate. This neighborhood would witness something it had never seen. Before, a showdown between a fake authority figure and someone who had survived combat. Situations far worse than any HOA threat. My priority was clear. Protect my daughter and teach HOA, Karen and her fake officers, a lesson they would never forget. But before the showdown could fully unfold, I had to gather evidence, plan my response, and make sure nothing went wrong. Every move had to be precise. Every decision mattered. Little did HOA Karen know, she had just triggered a chain of events that would shake our neighborhood to its core. After the terrifying confrontation that morning, I knew things couldn't continue as they were. HOA Karen wasn't going to back down. And her fake police weren't just a one-time scare. They were persistent, manipulative, and utterly convinced they could intimidate anyone. But I had an advantage most people didn't: experience. Years of SEAL training taught me discipline, situational awareness, and the ability to read people's intentions in an instant. I needed to apply every lesson I'd learned, not on a battlefield, but on my own street. First, I documented everything. Cameras were set up strategically around the yard and driveway. Every angle, every possible encounter with HOA Karen or her fake officers would be recorded. I knew she thrived on chaos and confusion, so turning her own tactics against her was the best strategy. My neighbors had already noticed the tension, whispering about Karen's endless complaints and over-the-top threats. Most avoided confrontation altogether, too intimidated to step in. That's exactly what HOA Karen wanted. A neighborhood under her control. But not my family. Next, I reviewed every previous HOA communication. Notices, letters, even texts were carefully analyzed. Karen had a pattern. She escalated quickly, tried to manipulate facts, and always assumed her position of authority was unquestionable. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a methodical campaign. Understanding her tactics gave me an advantage. If I could anticipate her moves, I could protect my family and set boundaries that she couldn't cross. Then came the mental preparation. In the SEALs, we always trained for high-stress situations where lives depended on split-second decisions. I reminded myself that fear wasn't an option. My daughter's safety was paramount, but I also wanted to expose the truth. HOA Karen's intimidation tactics would no longer work. Calmness, confidence, and clarity were my weapons, not aggression. Yet, I had to be ready for confrontation, because she had already proven she wouldn't respect warnings or polite requests. Finally, I enlisted allies, trusted neighbors, aware of Karen's antics, were willing to witness events and provide testimony if necessary. Transparency would be key. I wasn't preparing for a fight in the traditional sense. I was creating an environment where HOA Karen's lies and bullying tactics would collapse under their own weight. Every camera, every witness, every strategic move was designed to ensure that when the next confrontation happened, there would be no ambiguity, the truth would be undeniable, and she would be exposed. As evening fell, I looked out over my yard and imagined the next encounter. HOA Karen might think she had power, but the tide was about to turn. The neighborhood would soon see what happens when a fake authority crosses a Navy SEAL dad and underestimates the lengths a parent will go to protect their child. The next morning, the tension in the neighborhood was palpable. HOA Karen was already circling the cul-de-sac, clipboard in hand, looking for any opportunity to assert control. But this time I was ready. Cameras captured her every move, and I had strategically positioned myself so that no sudden maneuver would catch my family off guard. Karen, oblivious to the surveillance, approached with her usual smirk, as if she owned the street. I could see her plotting her next intimidation tactic, ready to escalate once more. She started immediately. "Your yard is a violation again," Karen barked, waving her clipboard like a sword. Behind her, two men in fake badges shuffled forward, pretending to be law enforcement. Their expressions tried to mask uncertainty, but I could tell they weren't prepared for what they were about to face. I stepped forward calmly, positioning myself between them and my daughter, every muscle ready, every nerve alert. This wasn't just about standing my ground. It was about making Karen realize her bluff had been called. Karen's voice grew louder, accusing me of ignoring rules that didn't even exist. She tried to intimidate, to control, to force compliance, but I stayed composed. "She is not going anywhere," I stated firmly, my tone leaving no room for argument. The fake HOA officers hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. It was clear they weren't expecting a direct confrontation with someone trained to respond to high-risk threats. Karen, sensing her allies faltering, tried to escalate further, her words becoming desperate, almost shrill. That's when I decided it was time to assert control. But legally, safely, and with evidence backing every move. I gestured to the cameras. "Everything you're doing is being recorded," I said. Her smirk faltered slightly. The weight of accountability had reached her. Her fake cops froze. The tide was turning. My daughter, previously unaware of the danger, now stood safely behind me, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and awe. Karen realized she was outmatched, not physically, but strategically. Every move she made could be documented, every lie exposed. Her threats started losing power as I calmly enforced boundaries. It was a subtle yet absolute reversal of control. The neighborhood's self-appointed tyrant was now the one under scrutiny. And for the first time, Karen looked uncertain, almost human, stripped of her illusion of authority. By the end of the confrontation, it was clear who was in control. The fake HOA police retreated, mumbling excuses, while Karen herself backed down, at least for the moment. Victory wasn't about intimidation or aggression. It was about preparation, presence, and protecting family with both strength and intelligence. But this wasn't over. Karen's ego and desire for control meant she could try again. I needed to be ready for whatever came next. The days following the confrontation were tense, but I remained vigilant. HOA Karen had tasted resistance for the first time, and it clearly rattled her. She prowled the neighborhood, sending passive-aggressive letters, making pointed comments to neighbors, and trying to reclaim her sense of control. But this time, I had the upper hand. Every move she made had been documented. Every threat, every fake badge, every overstep captured on camera. The narrative had shifted. Now, it wasn't just my word against hers. It was proof, undeniable and airtight. I reviewed the footage with my neighbors, sharing clips that clearly exposed Karen's fake police stunt and her relentless intimidation. The community, once intimidated, began to see her for what she really was, a bully hiding behind self-assumed authority. People were shocked. They had been afraid to confront her, but now the truth was visible to everyone. Karen's credibility began to crumble before our eyes. Even her closest supporters started questioning her motives, whispering about her obsession with control. One morning, Karen approached my property again, clipboard raised, expecting the same fearful reaction. Instead, I calmly stepped onto the porch and addressed her directly. "Your threats have been recorded, and every attempt to intimidate my family has been documented," I said. The words hit her like a thunderclap. The smirk that once defined her arrogance vanished. Her fake police colleagues were nowhere in sight, likely realizing this battle was beyond their pay grade. Karen hesitated, caught between fury and the realization that her games had been exposed. What followed was almost anticlimactic. Karen, stripped of her aura of authority, muttered a few last threats and retreated down the street, her power broken. The neighborhood had witnessed the fall of their self-appointed tyrant, and while I knew she might attempt petty harassment in the future, her biggest weapon, fear, was gone. My daughter, once a target, now understood the importance of standing strong against intimidation. This wasn't just a victory for me. It was a lesson for the whole community. Courage, Preparation and truth had triumphed over lies and fake authority. Reflecting on the ordeal, I realized the true power wasn't in physical strength alone. It was in vigilance, strategy, and unwavering protection of family. HOA Karen had underestimated what she was up against, assuming fear could be manufactured and compliance forced. But courage backed by evidence and preparation is unstoppable. The neighborhood finally understood. No matter how loud a bully shouts, the truth always prevails. As I watched Karen retreat down the street one last time, I felt a deep sense of relief. The message was clear. She could never threaten my family again, and the community had seen that even a Navy SEAL dad is human. But human with preparation and determination is unstoppable. The showdown was over. Karen had lost, and our neighborhood would never forget it. Thanks for watching till the end. If you're enjoying these crazy HOA and Karen stories, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want more stories just like this, don't forget to subscribe. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Your support keeps these stories coming.